Yo, what is going on YouTube? It's your boy Dan, aka aDrive. I'm bringing you guys a brand new video today. Today we're gonna be talking about a ton of information regarding Pokemon Sword and Shield and the lost/hidden 35 Pokemon that have yet to be revealed that are going to be featured in Pokemon Sword and Shield. And we know that there's a Pokemon Direct coming tomorrow, so if you guys are excited for that, you can check it out with my live stream on twitch.tv/aDrive. We're going to be watching it together, and it's 20 minutes of coverage for Pokemon Sword and Shield. So there's a lot that we're going to break down here, so get yourselves ready. Hit that like button down below. Subscribe if you guys are new, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this video in the comment section below. But as I said, there is a direct tomorrow for Pokemon, 20 minutes long. It's the longest direct we've ever had, and there's a lot of rumors flying around about what it's going to be about. I think it's pretty safe to assume at this point that it will cover Pokemon Home, Pokemon Sleep, potentially, and then there's going to be a very big focus on Pokemon Sword and Shield. I don't anticipate a brand new game announcement tomorrow. A lot of people have been throwing around the rumors of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl remakes and things like that. And while I do personally believe that Diamond and Pearl remakes will be coming out in 2020, I don't think that now is the time for them to reveal that. It's too close to the release of Pokemon Sword and Shield, and I think that they would be jeopardizing their current sales of Sword and Shield or potential future sales by announcing the next title now. It's a big marketing no-no to do that so soon. So it's very possible that we're going to get maybe a teaser, but I do think more likely we're going to be focused primarily on Pokemon Sword and Shield. So let's talk about what's going on here, because there's a couple things. First thing we noticed is PokeExperto posted this, and a couple people have noticed that the German announcement actually specifically mentions that there's going to be new features for Pokemon Sword and Shield. So while the different announcements in different languages came out, and we know that this is a Pokemon Direct, we don't really know much about it other than it's a 20-minute Pokemon Direct. The German announcement very much so clarifies that it is details regarding Pokemon Sword and Shield. Now, in my video yesterday, I mentioned that I believe that there is going to be a DLC for the game, but we don't know to what extent that's going to be, or even if that's a thing. That's just a rumor that I had heard through a couple different sources, and I do think that there will be DLC, but we'll have to see. And for those who don't know, there's actually 2 Gigantamax Forms that have not been revealed yet, and I will be covering those in this video, including images, so if you don't want to see them, this is a potential spoiler warning for you. There's already kind of a spoiler on the screen, but I think a lot of people already knew about that. So either way, we know that there's going to be Pokemon Sword and Shield focus, but here's where the really good stuff starts. There's 35 missing Pokemon in the Pokedex, and we're going to talk about Pokemon Home and how this all pertains to each other. The first thing we're going to look at here is hackers have already actually adjusted some of the raids, and you can see this really cool Squirtle raid that exists. And why does a Squirtle raid exist in Pokemon Sword and Shield? Well, simply put, Squirtle is in Pokemon Sword and Shield. You can't obtain it yet, but it is in the game coding, and this is a conversation that I had on my live stream yesterday, and I wanted to make a video about, because a lot of people either didn't know that these Pokemon existed in the game or are confused about how Pokemon Home is going to function. So with Squirtle being seen here in the raids, very cool that someone was able to get that in there. It's really not too magical though when you really factor in what Pokemon Home is going to do and the Pokemon that are missing from the Pokedex that are going to be allowed in the game moving forward. So let me pull up this graphic here of Pokemon Home. And in this graphic for Pokemon Home, we can actually see a couple different things. This is the original graphic that they released when they showed Pokemon Home. The idea behind it is the Nintendo 3DS and Pokemon Bank can go into Pokemon Home, Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee can go into Pokemon Home, and Pokemon Go can go into Pokemon Home. However, if you notice, the only thing that's backwards compatible is Sword and Shield. So you can move Pokemon from Sword and Shield into Home, but you can only take them out of Home by putting them into Sword and Shield. So once a Pokemon enters Pokemon Home, the only place it can go is Pokemon Sword and Shield. It cannot go back to a previous game. It cannot go back to Pokemon Go. It cannot go anywhere but Pokemon Sword and Shield, which makes me also believe that not only is the release of Pokemon Home coming very soon, but they're also going to continue to develop Pokemon Sword and Shield in a way that's going to encourage people to want to play the game, because otherwise it kind of makes the whole situation pointless. This also makes me believe that there's going to be a new game in 2020, because they're going to have to basically make Pokemon Home worthwhile, in my opinion. And while we know that this is supposed to be a mobile application with mini games and things like that, it ultimately seems as though that there's going to need to be some sort of compatibility with Pokemon Home moving forward to the next generation. Otherwise, they're kind of just trapped in Sword and Shield and back and forth. Now, let's go back to what I was originally talking about here with these 35 Pokemon. For those who aren't aware, there's 35 Pokemon located in the game coding. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because a lot of people seem to believe that when Pokemon Home comes out, you just open the floodgates and everything is allowed to come into Pokemon Sword and Shield. But that is not the case. Those Pokemon that were not included in the Pokedex are not part of the game coding, which means that the Pokemon Sword and Shield data that creates the game does not have information for Metagross. It does not have information for Garchomp. It does not have models for those Pokemon. And while it is possible for these things to be patched in later, it is incredibly unlikely. So I'm going to set the expectation now. Do not expect Pokemon Home to come out and to open the floodgates of all these Pokemon that have been missing. However, there are this list of 35 Pokemon that will be allowed in Pokemon Sword and Shield at some point. Whether it's at the release of Pokemon Home or through an event down the road or however they're going to spin it, we know that these Pokemon 1,000,000% are coded into the game. These Pokemon all have models, they all have stats and nature, or stats and move sets and everything like that. In fact, some of these Pokemon even got new moves, which means that they have updates, right? So let's look at them very, very briefly here. Bulbasaur, Ivysaur, Venusaur. We know Venusaur gets Earth Power, it gets Weather Ball, gets some updates there. Squirtle, Wartortle, Blastoise. Blastoise gets Shell Smash now. And again, these Pokemon do not have new Gigantamax forms with only 2 exceptions, which I'll cover as well in this video. Mew, Mewtwo, Celebi, Jirachi, so a couple mythical Pokemon that are located from the first couple generations. And then Cobalion, Terrakion, Virizion, Reshiram, Zekrom, Kyurem. A lot of legendaries. These are the Justice Trio and the legendaries from the Black and White Unova series. Keldeo, Kyurem, etc. These are all those legendaries. Dartrix, Decidueye, Rowlet, Litten, Torracap, Incineroar, Popplio, Brionne, Primarina. All the starter Pokemon from the Alola region. Cosmog, Cosmoem, Solgaleo, Lunala, Necrozma, Marshadow, Zeraora, and then of course Meltan and Meltitan, or Melmetal. I always call him Meltitan. Melmetal, of course, the Pokemon from Pokemon Go and from Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. So when we look at this list, there's a few things to mention. 1, we have the rest of the starters. 2, we've got some cool mythicals and some legendaries, specifically from the Unova region, and then a big focus on the Alolan region. But what do we not have here? Well, we don't have really any representation of Generation 4. Where is the Sinnoh region? It doesn't exist here. And there's a couple very crucial Pokemon in the Sinnoh region that are not in Sword and Shield, and that also points to some sort of a remake at some point. Now, it's not any guess or crazy prediction here that we are going to get a Diamond and Pearl remake eventually. I do still think it's this year. Just my thoughts. But anyway, this group of Pokemon. There's also some Alolan Pokemon that I believe are coded into the game. I think Alolan Raichu, Alolan Ninetales, things like that. But definitely some interesting Pokemon that could change various things. It is my understanding that the competitive metagame for Sword and Shield requires that the Pokemon is born in the Galar region, which means that if you have your favorite shiny Venusaur that you want to transfer in, I don't think you can use that in competitive, but you can breed a new one. Whether those will be allowed in the future rule sets, I have no clue, but it's definitely worth noting. And whether these Pokemon are going to be available as soon as the floodgates open at Pokemon Home, that's to be seen as well. It's very possible that these Pokemon are integrated through some sort of raid event, or maybe some sort of distribution, or maybe they're simply just allowed from Pokemon Home to give players a reason and incentive to get Pokemon Home, right? Like, hey, you can have Pokemon Home, and yeah, you can't transfer in your Metagross, but you can transfer in these Pokemon instead. And that could be kind of a give or take, you know, to try to give people the incentive to want to play the game, or you get Pokemon Home or whatever, because I'm sure there's going to be some sort of cost associated with Pokemon Home, whether it's $5 a year, $10 a year, something. I think it's going to cost something, I would guess, to have a subscription to Pokemon Home. So that's that. Now, let's talk a little bit about these 2 Gigantamax forms. And this is what I think this announcement is going to talk about. I think inevitably there is going to be some sort of announcement in this 20-minute Pokemon Direct that talks about at least one of these 2 Pokemon. And those 2 Gigantamax forms are Gigantamax Melmetal and Gigantamax Toxtricity. Now, if you're not familiar with those, here's your big spoilers, and we've got them coming up right now. There is Gigantamax Toxtricity. It does exist. It is a real thing. You can Gigantamax your Toxtricity once you have an actual Gigantamax Toxtricity. How it's going to come out, I have no idea. I think this is still going to be held onto for a little bit longer. I don't necessarily think this is the particular Pokemon that comes out for Pokemon Home. However, I do believe that this is the particular Pokemon that we're going to see for Pokemon Home, and that is Gigantamax Melmetal. It only makes so much sense in my opinion. Melmetal and Meltan are the Pokemon that kind of came through the transfers of Go and Let's Go in the first place. Pokemon Home seems like a great way to integrate it all and make it all come for full circle and allow you to transfer in those various Pokemon that you couldn't have before, like the 35 that we mentioned. But again, I want to emphasize very, very much so that you're not going to be able to transfer in those other Pokemon, the Metagross, the Garchomps, etc. They don't exist in the game coding, so it would take a massive patch for that to change, and I don't anticipate that happening because I think it just would create a ton of breaking game bugs, and I believe that there was creative decisions to exclude those Pokemon in the first place. I don't think they're going to go back on that, guys. I'm going to be honest with you. But Nevertheless, this is my predictions for the Direct. Ultimately, I do believe that there is going to be this 20-minute presentation. A lot of it is going to be focused on Pokemon Home. They're probably going to show us how to transfer, how to do all these different things, and then there's going to be a massive focus on Pokemon Sword and Shield, and I believe there will be a DLC. I don't know for sure, just my speculations, but I do believe there'll be a DLC. If there's not a DLC, I do believe that this guy is going to be one of the bonuses for Pokemon Home. That is my guess. A secondary guess could be the hidden ability starters. A third guess could be the hidden ability fossils. That kind of aligns with what they've done in the past with mystery gifts and Pokebank and things like that. I remember Pokebank, there was an event back in like the X and Y ORAS days where you can get the hidden ability of Tyrunt and Aurora. So it seems as though that could align very nicely with these 4 fossils that don't have their hidden abilities yet, which by the way are pretty good when they do get their hidden abilities, but definitely some things to note there. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I know a lot of people have been asking about this and kind of curious what Pokemon Home is going to bring. I wanted to kind of set the standard and kind of set the expectations properly. Thank you guys for watching this video. Hit that like button down below. Subscribe if you guys are new, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.